All right. Good afternoon. Uh, my name is Daryl Franklin. I will be leading our webinar this afternoon. We are going to take a look at QuickBooks Point of Sale and how to do a physical inventory. We'll start out by talking about preparing for a physical inventory, backing up your point of sale. We'll talk about a couple of ways you can do inventory, a full cycle or a partial inventory. We'll talk about doing how to use a scanner and how to manually do the inventory. We'll look at setting up a zone map so that you know where you are working at in your store and so that you can do it in a logical manner. We'll take a look at how to do updates to your physical inventory once you have completed it. So I am going to open up my point of sale. First thing I want to do when I am doing a physical inventory is I want to go up to File and I want to back up my data. I want to back up my data so that if something goes totally wrong, I can always recover back to where I was before I started. So it's a good idea to do that backup. Next thing I want to do is I want to take a look at dividing my store up into sections. When you're doing a physical inventory, it's a really good idea to divide your store into zones or areas that you can count in a fairly short, reasonable amount of time. If you are doing your inventory with an inventory scanner, you want to break it down so that you can do that count usually in about 10, 15, very seldom more than 20 minutes at a time before you come back and upload that inventory into the computer. A couple of reasons for that. One is if you have any issues, then you know where to look because you did it in a smaller area as opposed to doing the entire store. And if you mess up in an area, you've only got to redo that small area, not the entire store. You're going to be a lot less ticked if you have to redo 10, 15, 20 minutes worth of work than if you have to do 6 hours worth of work because you tried to do the entire store all at one time. The next thing to look at is how many stores are you doing inventory for? If you're doing inventory for a single store and you only have one store, then once you have done your backup, you're ready to start physical inventory. If you have a multiple store situation, where you have more than one store, then you need to do a store exchange before you start your inventory. You will want to send files from the remote store to headquarters. At headquarters, you will want to process those files in. You'll then want to send back to the remote store. At the remote store, you'll process those in, send back to headquarters. At headquarters, you'll process in, send back to the remote store, and so on for 3 full cycles. The purpose of that is to make sure that all of your inventory is synced up and that you are seeing everything. And you don't want to have any junk that has different counts in one store as opposed to another. When you do a physical, it does not send to headquarters that you counted 5 red widgets. It sends to headquarters that either your widgets were perfect, there was no discrepancy, or it sends to headquarters that you were plus or minus a certain number of widgets. If you don't have both the headquarters and the remote store starting with the same number of red widgets, and you add 2, and you had 5 at the remote store when you counted, and it thought you had 3, you've counted 2 extra. If headquarters still thinks you had 5 and not 3, then now headquarters says you have 7. And so you've got to make sure that when you start the inventory, that both headquarters and the remote store have the same counts for all the items. And so that's the purpose of going up to stores and doing that sync to make sure that everything is in sync. Once you get there, then you're ready for the next step. You're ready to start doing your physical. Now, there are 2 basic ways to conduct an inventory. One is manually, where you're going to count everything by hand. The other is to be using an inventory scanner, where you're going to scan the items in the store. And then after scanning those items, you will be able to upload that scanner into your computer and see what you've counted. So, I don't have a scanner that I can hook up here, so we're going to talk about doing it manually, but we'll also discuss how you would do it if you were doing it with an inventory scanner. So to start your inventory, after you've got your backup, after you've synced your multiple stores, you're going to go to inventory. You're going to go down to start physical. On start physical, if you have more than one store, you can choose which store you're doing the inventory at the headquarters. At a remote store, you don't have any choices. The only store you can count for is that store. So when you bring up your physical inventory, you're going to see a list of all your stuff. On here, you've got the item number of the item name, any attributes that item may have, sizes. Expected quantity is how many the system thinks you have on hand. Counted is how many you actually count as part of that inventory. Difference is whether I counted exactly correct or whether I'm over or short. I've also got a column for alternate lookup, which I don't necessarily care a whole lot about. I've got my department, my vendor, last time I received this item, available quantity, and back-ordered quantity. I'm not really too concerned about any of these columns beyond the counted and difference column. Now, any of the columns that have a blue dot in front of it, I can click on and I can resort by that column. So I can reorganize how I'm looking at the information in my list. And therefore, it might make it easier for me to count if I'm looking at it in a certain way. I can choose item number, item name, department, vendor, whatever makes sense for you and the way you have your store laid out. Then, if I'm going to do this count by hand, then I'm going to come up here to I want to. I'm going to come down to run a report. I'm going to choose do a PI worksheet. The PI worksheet is then going to show me all the stuff I have in the store. I've got it sorted by department. I could resort it by any column with a little blue ball in front of it. Ideally, I want to sort this list in the same manner that my actual store inventory is sorted on that item list that we looked at when we started. Once you print this out, then you're going to take the printout, going to run around the store, and here in physical count, you will write down how many you've counted. It does tell you how many it expects you to find, just in case you realize that, boy, I got a lot of these I got to find. So you know to go look harder because you didn't find everything. But ideally, you're going to stick to one area of the store, and that area is going to be by the zone that you laid out. That is more important when you're doing it with an inventory scanner than it is when you're doing it with a piece of paper. But it is important to kind of know where you're at and what you're doing so that you can make sure of what you've counted and what you haven't counted, because you don't want to skip anything. Okay. So once we have all of our inventory counted, we're going to come back over here to our inventory sheet. If you're counting it manually by hand, you've got two choices. You can come over here and you can go into the counted column and you can type in what you counted as you were walking around and writing things down. The only challenge with that method is that you've got to make sure that you're entering the number on the correct line. Something that makes it a little simpler, I think, is come up here to I want to, add counts by hand, and under add counts by hand, you type in the item number that is written on the sheet, press enter, you tell it how many of those things you found, press enter, type in the next item number on your sheet, and tell it how many of those you found, move on to the next item, and type in that one, and tell it how many of those you found. Once you've entered all the information off of one sheet, you can do a save, and that's going to add those counts to your count sheet. You will notice these two items, I didn't find them all. That means they got to be hiding somewhere else in the store. So that means you're going to go look and see if you can locate those items. If you find them, you can come back into the counted column and you can correct that counted column to how many you finally found. Once you find everything, then you're still going to get a number of it, whatever the difference is, if you don't count the exact amount. If you count the exact amount, then you don't get anything over here. You'll notice down in the bottom right-hand corner, it tells me here I found one more than I expected, and I found 11 less than I expected. It tells me what the retail is of those items, what the cost is of those items, and what the net difference is between how many I found, my retail, and my cost of those items for my differences. And you're going to proceed and continue to do that until you've entered all your count sheets from all over the store. The other thing is, as you've counted, you can come up here and when you think you've got everything counted, go to I want to, run a report, and you can do a differences report. The differences report shows you anything you counted whose quantities do not match the original counts. You can go check for those items again and then make any adjustments for items that you may find after you look around. If you are doing a full, complete store inventory, you want to come down here to the bottom and you want to check this little checkbox that says set all items not counted to zero. That will zero anything that you did not count. I think I missed a couple of items. Only like 24,000 of them that I forgot to count. And so that will zero anything you didn't count. The advantage of that is if you miss something completely, it's going to make it a negative. If something started as a negative item, it's going to make it zero, which is going to make it a positive number. You're going to have more than expected because it has to add to a negative number to get up to 0. And so that's an important step when you're doing the full entire store. If you're only counting a department, then you do not want to check that set all items not counted to 0, because if you finalize the inventory, anything that now has 0 in it is going to have 0 when you finalize it, and you're going to zero out all that stuff. Another reason why it's really important to do that backup before you start, so that if you do something silly like that, you can restore and start over. Another important thing is as you're going along, and if I was entering it manually and I type in a sheet, then I'd want to come over here and hit save and continue, and then type in the next sheet. If for some reason you need to interrupt your inventory counting, you're going to lunch, you're going to dinner, whatever, you can do a save and continue, and you can close out. You did not lose anything that you've done up to that point. Next time you come back and go to inventory and start physical, it's not going to start over. It's going to start where you left off. And so you do not have to completely start over to know where you're at. If you've counted everything in the store and you're wanting to make your final adjustment, don't go straight to apply changes. Do a save and continue, close out, and go up and back up your data. Remember, you can only do a backup on the server computer. So if you have more than one computer in the store, you've got to be sure to go to the server to do the backup. You do not have to be on the server computer to actually do the inventory counts. If you are doing a cycle count or a partial inventory, you're only going to count one department or something like that, then it's important that, number one, you do not check set all items not counted to 0, but that you do check that department and make sure that everything has a number beside it. If you don't have a number, then that means you need to go enter a 0 or count that item because you have missed it, or it's grown legs and walked away on its own. But so you want to make sure that every number in the area that you're counting in your partial inventory has a number, and then you double check that area to make sure that everything has some value, even if that value is 0, so that you know when you run that differences report, you're going to have correct differences. And that when you finalize the inventory, you're going to have correct counts in your inventory too. All right. So if we are doing an inventory using an inventory scanner, that's when it's important to break the inventory down into the different zones so that you can count that area by running around and scanning everything in that area in that 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. With the inventory scanner, it doesn't matter at all what items are in that area you count, because it's easily going to keep track of them. You don't have to worry about it. It's going to drop the correct item into the correct inventory number slot on the point of sale. So the first step with the inventory scanner, when you're using that, is to make sure that your scanner is connecting to the computer properly, which is why we recommend that before you do a physical inventory, that you set up an appointment the day before you're doing your physical inventory so that we can log in with you, make sure your scanner is connected and working properly. It's not a bad idea to set up a appointment to also even just go over doing a manual count inventory as well, just to make sure you have all of your T's crossed and your I's dotted. So with the physical inventory scanner, once you've determined that it is indeed connected correctly to your computer and is talking to your computer, you clear the scanner, you go out and count the one zone. After you've counted that zone, you come back, put the scanner in its cradle, you come over here to I want to, and then you're going to do add counts from scanner. When you choose add counts from scanner, you're going to get a screen that will show up that says follow these instructions, and you hit next. When you hit next, it tells you make sure your scanner is in the cradle and that it's on the proper screen. And they show you a little screenshot of what screen the scanner should be on. You then choose next, and it goes out to your scanner and uploads the data out of the scanner into your computer. When it's done, it's going to show you a dialog box will pop up, and in that dialog box there are two tabs. Hopefully one tab never lights up. One of them says unrecognized scans, the other one says item scans. Hopefully the unrecognized scans is never going to pop up on you. Unrecognized scans is an item that was scanned that the system does not recognize in your item list. The proper way to treat that is to pull that item and then put it on a fix-it table and check it later. If it scans, great, put it back where it belongs. If it doesn't scan, then you want to print a new tag for it so that you can scan it in inventory and then put it away. When you're doing that on the unrecognized scans tab, it's going to show you the item you scanned before and after the unrecognized scan. So you can find the two good items, know the item between them is the bad item, so you know exactly which item to pull and put on the fix-it table. You also get a choice of if you want to print that unrecognized scan list. If you do not have a lot of unrecognized scans, I wouldn't print the list, because the list doesn't just print what you see on the unrecognized scans tab. It prints everything you scanned in that zone. So if you scanned 500 different items, you're going to get about 10 pages of printout. And if you only had 2 unrecognized scans, that's an awful lot of wasted paper. You can easily take a piece of paper, jot down the 2 good scans so you can find the bad item, and just write down the before and after item so you can go find the one that needs to be fixed. If you got a lot of items, then it doesn't hurt to print. So once you have figured out what you need to pull, then you click on the Item Scans tab. On the Item Scans tab, at the bottom, you have a Select All option. You're going to choose Select All, and then you're going to choose Save Selected. That will save those items to your inventory, and you will see those numbers populate here in the Counted column. If an item is scattered in 2 different places within the store, then your difference is going to be short something. But when you scan that other portion of the store where that item is, and you upload those scans, it will adjust that counted column to add to it however many you found in the different part of the store, so you have the right total of each item. If you're counting manually and you're not entering them on the add counts by hand, then you have to make that adjustment. If you're entering them on the add counts by hand, then it will add them up for you. So if I go here and I say item 1800, I found 5 of them, and I save that. You can see that I'm short 4. Well, if somewhere else in the store I found that again, and I went up here and I did 1,800, and I found 4 more, when I save that one, it's going to add them up and give me the grand total. But if you're writing them down off a counted piece of paper, that item is not going to show up on another sheet of paper. So that makes it a little bit more challenging when you're doing it by hand. With the scanner, it's real easy. You don't have to worry about that because you're just going to scan it wherever it's at, and it is going to add them up and total them all so you got the grand total at the end. When you are counting, it's important to count in a logical manner, across, down, whatever makes sense for what you're counting on. But that way, if you do have found that unrecognized item, it's easier to spot the 2 good items and the bad item if you put them in an organized manner. The physical inventory scanners, to do that inventory using the scanner, you can purchase those, or we also rent them. We rent them on a daily basis. The very, very first time you want to do a physical inventory and you want to do them with the inventory scanner, we will rent you a scanner for 1 day at no charge. After that, you're charged by the day. If you need to keep a scanner for 2 days, you're charged 2 days. You can rent 1 scanner, you can rent 4 scanners, and you're charged per day per scanner. A weekend, Saturday and Sunday, count as a single day. So if you do your inventory on Saturday, Sunday, you're renting a scanner, it should arrive on Friday. You do your inventory Saturday and Sunday, you send it back on Monday, and you're charged 1 day, not 2. Or even 3 or 4 for the shipping days. All right. Let's see, where to go? If you're doing it and you have remote stores, then something you want to do when you get all done is you want to upload your final scan from the remote store to headquarters. And when you do that, you will do it similar to the way you did the original get in sync at the beginning. You will send from the remote store to headquarters. Headquarters will process in, send back to the remote. You'll do that back and forth for 3 full cycles just to make sure they get fully in sync. And when you're all ready to sync them up, you're going to come down here. Like if you're doing the full inventory, you're going to check this to 0 anything you didn't count. If you're doing a partial, do not check that. When you're all done, you've got your backup. You can do apply changes. It says you're about to update your inventory. When you click yes, whatever it says in the counted column is going to be your new counts. If you have nothing in the counted column, it's not going to do anything to those items. So if I say yes, continue, it's going to update that. Anything which did not match my original quantity is going to be added to a quantity adjustment memo. So, okay, it's going to make that memo. I can then run a differences report and see the differences. You should have already done that before you finalize your inventory, but you can run another one. You can run a detail report, which shows you what you counted. And it shows you each item that you counted, how many was expected, how many you counted, and any differences that you had. And it also shows you your difference in cost and in retail. And once you've done that, you've completed your physical inventory. When you're doing the physical inventory, you really should be closed. It's not a good idea to do a physical inventory when the store is open. If that is just totally unavoidable, there's no way you can close to do the physical inventory. And as you're going along during the day, and if you sell something, you're going to have a little box that'll pop up down here. So I've started this physical inventory. I'm going to go sell one of these 1,800 items. So I'm going to count 9 of them. I'm going to save my changes. I'm going to come out here and I'm going to sell one of those 1,800s. So I sold one of those. If I look at my physical inventory, it says I have one too many now. And you also get this little box down here at the bottom that says this item has changed quantity since you started your physical inventory. You can check the little checkbox down here at the bottom, and it shows you only the items that have changed quantity. And what you want to do is you want to run around and verify that indeed the number you have here in the counted column is the correct quantity for how many you have on hand, because it does not adjust itself for items that you've sold. So you want to make sure that you correct the quantity. All right. And that pretty much wraps up the physical inventory. Anybody have any questions?
Yes.
I don't hear any questions. All right. So if you come up with any questions, you can always give us a call at 916-368-1070, or you can drop us a note at either tech, T-E-C-H, at bighairydog.com, or you can drop a note directly to me, Darrell, D-A-R-R-E-L-L-F like Frank, at bighairydog.com, and I will be glad to answer those questions for you. If I can't answer them in the email, then I will give you a call and we will get the question answered for you. So I hope everybody picked up a couple of good tips, and I will talk to you again soon.
Darrell, can you give us the email address again, please?
Yes. The basic address is tech, T-E-C-H, at bighairydog.com.
The full Big Hairy
Dog? Big Hairy Dog, all spelled out.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
My address is Darrell F. at bighairydog.com. And if you look over here at this little yellow sticky note,
mm-hmm.
There's my our phone number, the tech email, and my email.
Great. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Right. Any other questions? All right. So this webinar will end up being put online on our YouTube page, and they will send you out a note letting you know where you can find it, so that if you want to review it, you can go review it. All right. So everybody have a great one, and we'll talk to you a little later down the road. Right.
Thank you. Thank you.